The restaurant's hall was vast, with a golden glow emanating from the chandeliers hanging above, casting a soft light over finely decorated tables. Impeccable white tablecloths covered each one, while crystal glasses sparkled and the silverware gleamed under the diffused light. An air of sophistication filled the space, where subtle laughter and quiet conversations echoed, creating an almost musical ambiance. Every detail, from the precisely served dishes to the rehearsed smiles of the waiters, exuded luxury. Amidst this scene of opulence, he worked. The waiter, of humble origins, moved with discreet grace, almost invisible to the customers except when necessary. His movements were swift but precise, trained to meet the demands of a clientele that rarely acknowledged his presence. He took pride in his work, even though the contrast between his world and theirs was glaring. As he moved from table to table, he observed. He saw the ease with which the wealthy patrons spent money, ordering expensive dishes with the same indifference they might show when buying a magazine. To him, each plate carried the weight of a week's worth of labor, something these customers would never understand. Yet he never let it get to him. There was something in his gaze, a quiet determination of someone who knew that, although money separated him from these people, his dignity and dreams were priceless. The night wore on, and the restaurant began to quiet down. At a corner table, an elderly woman sat alone. Her tired, worried eyes were furtive, avoiding the gazes of the passing waiters. The waiter noticed her timid, almost hesitant movements as she rummaged through her purse, sifting through papers and coins. He had served many customers that evening, some demanding, others indifferent. But something about the old woman caught his attention. There was a humility in her gestures, a fragility that sharply contrasted with the luxurious surroundings. She seemed out of place, a vulnerable figure amidst the glitz and glamour. With each passing minute, her discomfort seemed to grow, and the waiter felt the weight of a decision approaching. He knew the rules of the place all too well. The restaurant, with its wealthy clientele, had strict policies. No charity, no exceptions. If a customer couldn't pay, the situation was to be handled with coldness and discretion. But as he glanced again at the elderly woman, his heart tightened. She sat there with an empty plate in front of her, and he realized that the bill would be a burden she clearly wasn't prepared to bear. For a moment, the waiter hesitated. He knew that decision could cost him his job, that breaking the rules would put him at risk. But something inside him, a silent voice, compelled him to act. He discreetly approached the register and paid the woman's bill, feeling a mix of relief and tension. As soon as the elderly woman left the restaurant, the manager, who always kept a watchful eye on everything, approached with firm steps. His face was expressionless, but his eyes betrayed the anger simmering beneath his mask of professionalism. The already quiet atmosphere grew heavier as he addressed the waiter directly, without breaking eye contact. "Did you pay that woman's bill?" The manager's voice was low but laden with thinly veiled contempt. The other staff, who had been busy with their tasks until then, stopped, sensing that something was about to happen. The waiter took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, and confirmed with a simple nod. It was the right thing to do, he tried to explain, still hopeful that his compassion might be understood. She was in trouble. She couldn't pay, and it didn't feel right to humiliate her for that. The manager crossed his arms, his lips pressed into a thin line of disdain. He took a step closer, almost invading the waiter's personal space. "The rules aren't meant to be broken," he said coldly. "This isn't a charity. Here, customers pay, or they leave. You disrespected the restaurant and our policy." Before the waiter could respond, the manager made his decision with icy finality. "You're fired. Gather your things and leave immediately." The sentence hit like a blow. As he walked through the streets with night already fallen, the waiter felt the cold wind on his face, as if the world itself was confirming the weight now on his shoulders. Each step felt heavier than the last. The manager's words echoed in his mind. "You're fired." He hadn't had an answer then, but now, in the silence, doubt gnawed at him. When he finally reached his small home, he dropped his uniform over a chair in the kitchen and sank into the old armchair in the living room. The lack of noise and hustle from the restaurant made the emptiness of the house even more stark. He knew there wasn't enough in savings to cover rent that month, and with his job gone, the bills would soon start piling up. Reality hit hard. His gaze drifted to the window, where the night stretched out endlessly, and he wondered, was it worth it? The image of the elderly woman, with her tired eyes and trembling hands, returned to his mind. He could have followed the rules, turned a blind eye to someone else's suffering, just like so many others did every day. But something inside him wouldn't allow that. Paying the bill wasn't just about the money. It was about dignity, hers and now his. But as the silence filled the room, his stomach growled and the bills on the table seemed to mock his choice. He felt the anguish of having sacrificed his livelihood. It was hard to ignore the weight of responsibility. Word spread quickly. Within a few days, the waiter became the center of conversation, not just at the restaurant, but throughout the neighborhood. Some friends called him a hero. "You did what any good-hearted person would do," they said, patting him on the back, proud of his courage. To them, what he did was noble, something few would have the boldness to do. It was as if, for a brief moment, he had challenged the world's unjust order. But there was another side too. "You were reckless," an older neighbor said, someone who always preached the importance of responsibility. "You paid her bill, and now who's going to pay yours?" The words stung like needles, questioning his decision with the harsh weight of reality. Others said he should have thought about the consequences, that such a gesture, no matter how altruistic, was foolish in a world where everyone had to fight to survive. Even within his own family, opinions were divided. His mother, though proud, looked at him with worried eyes. His brother, more pragmatic, didn't hold back. "You got fired for a good reason. Now let's see what you'll do. You can't live on good intentions alone." And as his name circulated between applause and reproachful looks, he felt the weight of every opinion, every word, as if the community itself was judging him. Days later, as the waiter began to adjust to the emptiness left by losing his job, an unexpected phone call changed everything. The voice on the other end was calm, firm, and carried an air of authority. "I'm the husband of the woman you helped at the restaurant. We need to talk." The meeting was set at the same restaurant where everything had happened. As he crossed the door again, the waiter felt the weight of that familiar but now hostile environment. The polished marble floors, the clinking of fine silverware, and the disdainful glances of his former colleagues were all still there. He was nervous, but the man beside him, the elderly woman's husband, a millionaire whose power was unmistakable, exuded an almost supernatural sense of confidence. The meeting took place in the restaurant's conference room, a space usually reserved for important decisions. The manager and the owner were present, both clearly uncomfortable, aware that something big was about to unfold. The manager, who had fired the waiter without hesitation, tried to maintain his composure, but his restless gaze betrayed his insecurity. The owner, a middle-aged man who rarely interacted with the staff, kept an impassive expression. The millionaire began the conversation with calculated calm. "I heard about your noble gesture, and I couldn't help but wonder why such a prestigious restaurant would fire someone for an act of kindness." His words cut through the air like a blade. The manager tried to interrupt, justifying his decision based on house policy, but was swiftly silenced by the sharp look from the millionaire. Rules that punish compassion are rules that need to be reconsidered. The waiter, who had felt small in the presence of these powerful men, sensed a shift in the atmosphere. For a brief moment, the balance of power had tipped in his favor. The tension in the room was palpable, as if the air itself was charged with electricity. The millionaire, now seated at the table with the waiter, seemed like a force of nature, his presence commanding the space. He looked the waiter in the eyes and said, "What you did wasn't just an act of kindness. It was a display of humanity in a world that too often forgets what truly matters." As the waiter absorbed those words, the manager, his face flushed, mustered the courage to speak up. "We can't allow thoughtless actions to jeopardize the reputation of our restaurant. We have standards to uphold." His voice trembled, and his defensive tone was evident. The restaurant owner, on the other hand, tried to find a graceful way out of the situation, but the nervousness in his eyes was unmistakable. Standards of compassion? That doesn't make sense, the millionaire retorted, turning to the owner. What exactly are you defending here? A rule that dehumanizes your employees in the name of fake prestige? The waiter, who had previously felt like a mere bystander in the story, found the courage to stand up. I knew I was breaking the rules, but I couldn't just stand by and watch someone in need. Life isn't just about numbers and profits. It's about people, their stories, and their moments. I acted based on what my heart told me. His voice was steady, echoing with the sincerity of someone who truly believed in what he said. The millionaire nodded in approval, appreciating the young man's bravery. And that's exactly what the world needs. Men and women willing to stand up for human dignity, no matter the circumstances. The waiter felt a weight lift from his shoulders, as though the pressure in the room was transforming him into something stronger. The discussion continued, but now the tide seemed to be turning. Public pressure, fueled by social media and stories of the waiter's kindness, was beginning to make itself felt. The restaurant's tables, once filled with customers, had now become a battleground for debate. Patrons began to question the restaurant's stance, and news of the meeting quickly spread throughout the city. After long minutes of arguments and defenses, the tension in the room began to ease. The millionaire, with a firm but gentle look, turned to the waiter. You didn't just have the courage to do the right thing, but you showed all of us that true wealth isn't in money but in compassion. I'd like to offer you an opportunity. The waiter frowned, a mixture of disbelief and suspicion crossing his face. An opportunity? He asked, still trying to process everything that was happening. The millionaire continued, Yes, I want you to work for my company. We're looking for someone with your heart and character. Your experience in customer service and your empathy are rare qualities we value. The words echoed in the waiter's mind, like a refrain that wouldn't fade. He had been through so many hardships, and now, just when he found himself without a job, he was receiving an unexpected offer that could change his life. Hesitation lingered in the air, but the memory of the elderly woman and the act of kindness he had chosen became a beacon in his mind. And what about my financial situation? He asked, still cautious. The millionaire smiled, a smile filled with the sincerity of someone truly willing to help. Along with a new job, I'll make sure you have financial support to get through this period. No one should suffer for doing the right thing. At last, the waiter's resistance began to melt away. He looked around, realizing that everyone in the room was watching. His friends and colleagues who had stood by him before now seemed amazed, as though they recognized the magnitude of the transformation about to take place. With a deep breath, he accepted the offer. I accept. The words came out more smoothly than he had expected. In saying them, he wasn't just accepting a new job, he was affirming his dignity and self-worth. He realized that his journey, marked by tough choices and challenges, had shaped him into someone stronger. And by taking this step, he wasn't just embracing a new opportunity. He was leaving behind a legacy of kindness that, in some way, would impact others around him. Now, as an employee at the millionaire's company, the waiter walked through the brightly lit corridors of the new office with a mix of anxiety and hope. The environment was distinct, full of modernity and innovation, a sharp contrast to the hectic pace of the restaurant where he had worked. The glass walls let the light flood in, creating a vibrant atmosphere that buzzed with energy. He still felt a bit like a fish out of water, but with each step, he grew more certain that he was exactly where he was meant to be. The first day was a whirlwind of new faces and information. As he adapted to this new reality, his memories of the past were still fresh. The image of the elderly woman at the restaurant table stayed with him, a constant reminder that his actions, no matter how simple they seemed, had the power to make a deep impact. Every smile and word of thanks from his new colleagues reinforced the idea that kindness wasn't just an isolated act, but a seed that could bloom into lasting relationships. As the days passed, he began to notice his attitude spreading through the team. Small acts of kindness started to ripple out. Colleagues began helping each other, sharing ideas, and supporting one another during stressful times. He had become an example, a living proof that empathy and compassion could transform not only one person's life, but an entire community. While organizing a new corporate social responsibility campaign, the waiter felt a wave of gratitude. With each step, it became clearer that his decision to help the elderly woman hadn't just changed his own fate, but had also reignited hope and kindness in the hearts around him. He smiled, realizing that the true value of life wasn't in wealth or possessions, but in the ability to make a difference, no matter how small. This new beginning wasn't just a new job, but a new mission, and he was ready to embrace it. One sunny afternoon, as the waiter gazed out the office window, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. The soft light filtered through, creating a warm atmosphere that contrasted with the turbulent days he had left behind. He remembered the day he decided to pay the elderly woman's bill, an act that, though small, completely altered the course of his life. What initially seemed like a naive gesture had sparked a chain of events that revealed the true essence of human connection. He sat at his desk, taking a deep breath. The sense of integrity that now accompanied him felt like a quiet triumph. He hadn't just preserved his dignity in the face of adversity, he had become a catalyst for change, inspiring those around him. He thought about the criticism he had faced, the disapproving looks, and realized that each challenge had been an opportunity for growth. Those experiences had shaped not just his career but his character. He smiled, recalling how his colleagues, motivated by his story, had started adopting a kinder, more supportive approach in their daily interactions. It proved that even in a world often driven by status and power, the true wealth lies in the connections we build and the impact we leave on others' lives. Empathy, he concluded, is a powerful force, capable of transforming not just individuals, but society itself. The waiter looked out the window again, feeling grateful. He knew that life would bring more challenges, but he now carried with him the certainty that kindness and dignity would always be worth more than any rule or convention. And deep down, that was what truly mattered. What would you have done in the waiter's place? Would you have paid the bill, or would you have thrown the old lady out because you didn't have money to pay the bill? Leave a comment below to tell us what you would do, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you don't miss any stories like this.